You know, there's this profound paradox that sits right at the heart of existence, a riddle that's been whispered in ancient hymns and is now echoed in the equations of modern physics. And the riddle is this: what if the most enduring, the most powerful, the most creative force in the entire cosmos is nothing? Today, we're going on a journey into this great mystery to understand how nothing, in its true sense, is the one thing that truly lasts forever. So, let's start here. This is a verse from one of humanity's oldest, most sacred texts, the Rig Veda. And what you're hearing, the Nasadiya Sukta, it isn't some simple creation story. No, it's more like a cosmic question mark. Just think about what it's saying. A state before time, before space, a condition that was neither being nor non-being. It points to this primordial potential, a silent, breathing darkness from which everything, and I mean everything, arose. This is our starting point. All right, so here's the path we'll take. First, we'll dive deeper into that ancient Vedic riddle of creation. Then, we'll explore two incredible answers from the East, the Vedantic idea of a full nothing and the Buddhist counterpoint of an empty being. After that, we're going to leap forward thousands of years to see what modern quantum physics has to say about the void. And finally, we'll weave all of these threads together to really understand that mind-bending title, Nothing Lasts Forever. So, let's begin with that first path, the Vedic inquiry. How did the ancient seers of India even begin to grapple with the ultimate question? Where did all of this come from? You have to understand this wasn't just some intellectual game for them. It was a deep, contemplative dive into the very nature of reality itself. This right here, this is what's so radical. It challenges our most basic logic. I mean, we think in binaries, right? Something is either here or it's not, it exists or it doesn't. But the Vedic sages said, hold on, what if there's a state that's beyond both? This primordial nothing wasn't an empty, lifeless void. It was neither sat, which is defined existence, nor asat, which is absolute non-existence. It was a state of pure, undifferentiated potential, a cosmic mystery that came before any category our minds could ever create. So, if it's neither being nor non-being, then what in the world is it? Well, the philosophical schools of Vedanta came up with a breathtaking answer. They propose that this primordial nothing is, paradoxically, the ultimate fullness. It's not an absence at all, but an absolute, total, and complete presence. And they gave this ultimate reality a name, Brahman. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that Brahman is not some personal god watching from on high. Not at all. It is the infinite, conscious ground of all being. The Upanishads describe it as Sat Chit Ananda. Let's break that down. Sat, pure, unadulterated existence itself. Sit, pure, limitless consciousness. And Ananda, pure, unbound bliss. This is the unmanifest source from which the entire cosmos just springs forth. And here is the key idea. From this Vedantic perspective, the universe of names and forms, you, me, the stars, all of it, is a dependent appearance. The term for it is mithya. The best way to think about it is like waves on an infinite ocean. The waves are real, of course. You can see them, you can feel them, but they have no independent existence apart from the ocean itself. In this analogy, Brahman is the ocean. And that primordial nothing we started with, well, that's this conscious plenum, this infinite potential, what's called Chittakasa, the space of consciousness that allows every single wave of creation to rise and fall. All right, let's move to our next path, because centuries later, with the Buddha, a profoundly different philosophical alternative emerged. While Vedanta saw reality grounded in an ultimate, full substance, Buddhism offered a radical counterpoint. The ultimate nature of reality isn't fullness, but a dynamic, vibrant emptiness. This concept is called Shunyata, or emptiness. Now, let's be really clear here. This does not mean that nothing exists. That's a huge misunderstanding. Shunyata teaches that all things are empty of a separate, independent, unchanging essence, what they call swabha. Basically, nothing exists on its own. Everything, from a simple thought to a giant star, arises in dependence on a whole web of other factors. It's all interconnected. This is the doctrine of dependent origination, and it's a beautiful middle way that avoids the extremes of saying things last forever or that nothing exists at all. This table really helps lay out the fundamental difference. On the one hand, you have Vedanta, where the ultimate reality is Brahman, a full, conscious, eternal foundation. Your true self, the Atman, is one with that Brahman. Then, in Buddhist Madhyamika philosophy, on the right, Well, there is no ultimate foundation. The ultimate reality is shunyata, the very lack of a permanent ground. There's no eternal self, or anatta. The individual is just a temporary collection of processes. So you see, one view posits a foundational fullness, the other reveals a reality of constant interdependent flow. For millennia, these two profound views really shaped the spiritual landscape of Asia. But now, we're going to pivot to a totally different way of knowing: modern physics. What happens when we point our most powerful instruments at the emptiness of space? What do we find in the void today? You know, the old classical view of a vacuum was just that. It was truly empty. A silent, inert, boring void. But is that what quantum mechanics actually shows us? Is nothing really nothing at all? Well, the answer, it turns out, is a huge, resounding no. Quantum field theory reveals a reality at the very basement level of the universe that is just buzzing with activity. There's something called zero-point energy, a minimum energy that fills all of space, meaning it can never be truly empty. And out of this energy, a quantum foam of virtual particles and antiparticles is constantly popping into existence and then vanishing back into nothingness. And we know this is real. The Casimir effect proves it. If you place two uncharged plates in a vacuum, they get pushed together by the energy of this quantum foam. It's a real, measurable force coming from empty space. Some cosmologists even think that tiny quantum fluctuations in this primordial vacuum were the actual seeds of all the galaxies. So, what we call nothing in science is actually a seething, energetic plenum of potential, a fertile void from which reality itself can emerge. It's uncanny how similar that description sounds to the ancient accounts of a generative emptiness, isn't it? But there is one profound, massive difference. The quantum vacuum is a probabilistic mathematical substrate. The Vedic plenum, Brahman, is described as pure consciousness. And this brings us to our grand synthesis. We've walked down three very different paths: Vedanta, Buddhism, and quantum physics. At first, they might seem worlds apart. One talks about a conscious Godhead, another about interdependent flow, and the last about probabilistic fields. But what if they're all just describing different facets of the same ultimate reality? Just look at how these different traditions try to describe the source of everything. Vedanta points to a conscious plenum. Buddhism describes a dependent flux. Quantum physics reveals a quantum foam. You see the pattern? Fullness, interdependence, potential. Even though the languages and the methods are completely different, they all seem to converge on this one radical idea, that the ground of our being is not some static, solid something, but a dynamic, generative nothing. I love this quote because it points to such a beautiful reconciliation. Maybe the Vedantic self, the Atman, isn't some fixed thing, but is actually nourished and defined by its relationship with this silent nothingness. And maybe the Buddhist emptiness, Shunyata, isn't a dead void at all, but has a substantial, liberating power, a vibrant, aware quality to it. Maybe the two systems are more like two sides of the same coin, pointing to the same truth from opposite directions. And so we arrive at our core conclusion. The fullness of Vedanta, the flux of Buddhism, and the foam of quantum physics, they all point to this single astonishing reality. Nothing is not an absence to be afraid of. It is the source from which all things arise, it is the process by which all things change, and it is the destination to which all things return. It's the eternal, generative engine of the entire cosmos. Because it isn't a thing that can be created or destroyed. It is the very possibility of creation and destruction itself. It's the canvas on which the whole universe is painted. And that is why nothing lasts forever. And you know, this isn't just some big cosmic abstraction. It has profound meaning for each and every one of us. When we let go of clinging to a fixed, separate idea of ourselves, when we understand that we aren't solid things but are more like patterns of flow and flux, we can stop fighting the current of reality and actually begin to move with it. In realizing the eternal, generative nature of this great nothing, we touch the infinite within ourselves. This has been a Sacred Vantage Bliss Explainer. If this journey into nothingness resonated with you, please do consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Join us as we continue to explore these incredible meeting points between ancient wisdom and modern science. Thank you for listening.